Hi, and welcome to the next episode of our journey through the life of Dr. Hak Jahan Moon, the Mother of Peace. In today's message, Mother shares more of her early experiences leading up to the 200-year anniversary of the United States of America. But first, I'd like to establish some context. America took on a central role in the world right after World War II. Stained with the history of racial problems and other abuses, it was not a perfect nation by any means. But it was a nation that revered heaven. American people believed in and honored God. Although considered a Christian nation, all citizens enjoyed religious freedoms. And it became a nation that could represent the whole world. America was also a truly generous nation. All of these qualities are in line with the original purpose to serve the world centered on our Heavenly Parent. Had the established churches of the time listened carefully to the prophecies of Reverend Moon, they would have found the necessary guidance from heaven to protect themselves from the challenges that lay ahead. The people were ready to hear the divine principle. Did you know that the 1950s was a period when the largest percentage of Americans regularly attended church? They were experiencing the first boom in the economy since the devastation of the Great Depression, and people were hungry for God and for family. In fact, it was during the 1950s that the family room was invented. Did you know that? Middle-class families created a totally new space in the home called the family room. The purpose of this room was to spend time with the family. It was separate from the spaces where they may entertain the guests or conduct other household chores. It was a room specifically set aside where parents and children spent leisure time together. The family room is now a staple of American architecture until today. It's as if the families of the day were ready to hear the Word of God on Sunday and then grow at home throughout the week, attending one another in their family room. However, church leadership, the ones who were responsible for the moral guidance of the people, did not listen to the will of heaven, and gradually the nation fell asleep to its core purpose and value. The following decades brought the icy winds of the Cold War, ideological confusion, the erosion of family values, and an increase in self-centered, self-serving behavior. Due to the lack of clear-minded religious leadership, America was in trouble. By the time Father and Mother Moon were able to arrive in the 1970s, the nation was facing an uncertain future. By now, the entire world was trembling from an ideological war between democracy and communism. And the ultimate target was the United States. We can easily get distracted by the politics of it all, but in fact, that is all quite secondary. Behind all of the politics and the propaganda, the dramatic Cold War espionage, there are simply two fundamentally opposing views. One that affirms the existence of God, and one that denies the existence of God. One that places God above all else, and one that places man above all else. Literally, America was in the crosshairs of the providence, and the future of humanity hung in the balance. The title of this message is "We Invested Everything to Save America for the sake of the world. From the moment Father and Mother started their ministry in the United States, they invested everything to revive its founding spirit. They were constantly on speaking tours, attracting young Americans to their idealistic teaching. They warned the democratic world was in crisis in the face of communist expansion. It is easy to forget, but one of the most insidious aspects of the communist threat was that the general public in America did not really understand its true danger at the time. President Nixon was adamant about stopping the progression of communism in Southeast Asia, but domestically, the Vietnam War was unpopular due to mounting demonstrations. Ignited by communist affiliates within the United States, these disruptions were able to capture the natural zeal of the college youth and turned many of them against their nation. Trust in government had already waned due to the Watergate scandal that plagued Nixon's entire term in office. The hysteria of the ideological and political turmoil underscored by the deterioration of traditional values through the culture of drugs and free sex made it harder and harder to determine right from wrong. The commander-in-chief, who was supposed to be steering the ship, was facing the threat of impeachment. In short, the forces of evil were looking for any way to destabilize the nation and confuse the youth in order to stop America from fulfilling its God-given destiny. The American people did not know which way to turn. They were in desperate need of true leadership. While the majority of the established churches kept silent, it was this young Korean couple, Father and Mother Moon, who had personally witnessed the horrors of godless communist oppression, that took it upon themselves to beckon the inner minds of the American people back to their original purpose. They took on the seemingly controversial task of steering the heart of America back to God. As Mother describes it, Father Moon tackled it all head on. It was my husband who spoke out. Our movement published America in Crisis, Answer to Watergate, Forgive, Love, Unite, in 21 leading newspapers. This was not about forgiving President Nixon alone, Father said, but about forgiving, loving, and uniting as a nation for the sake of the world. Father knew that repentance was needed, and our members worked hard to regain America's love for God and the dignity of the American presidency. Finally, President Nixon took notice. Early in 1974, President Nixon sent us an invitation to meet him in the White House. Mr. Nixon was anxious, aware of the likelihood of impeachment. As members covered the White House in prayer, my husband counseled him to stand strong, confess any wrongdoing, and call for national prayer, unity, and renewal. At this point, there was an opportunity for a radical shift. Had Nixon heeded the advice, America would have taken a very different course. But unfortunately, by August of that year, the President of the United States resigned in order to avoid the shame of impeachment. This was not just a political fall from grace. This was a providential failure of America's central figure at the time, which almost certainly exposed Father and Mother Moon to greater persecution. Nonetheless, they continued to combat godless ideology in America and around the world. Not only were they working in the field of religion with Christian clergy, but they also established important foundations in the field of science, academia, leadership, entertainment, and more. They continued their speaking tours, eventually filling large stadium events at Madison Square Garden and Yankee Stadium that we covered in the last episode. But their final goal in observance of America's bicentennial was the National Mall. Just 3 months after the exhausting effort of Yankee Stadium, and in the continued face of ongoing ridicule and persecution, they set out to gather not thousands or tens of thousands, but hundreds of thousands on the National Mall in Washington, D.C., to hear directly from Father Moon about the direction America must take in order to not only survive, but to bring healing to the rest of the world. Not surprisingly, members of the US government with less than noble motives worked with narrow-minded religious leaders and anti-cult groups that preyed upon members' parents to launch an all-out attack on us. Always on the lookout for controversy, the media built its audience by articles and news reports disparaging and criticizing us. Nonetheless, without a trace of fear or the remotest consideration about pulling back, my husband and I set aside our personal safety and dedicated our lives to the future of the United States. Can you imagine what this was like for true parents? Can you imagine what it was like for true mother at the time? Barely 30 years old. In fact, she was 33 years old at the time. This beautiful young woman, born in a humble village in North Korea, barely married for 15 years, had traveled across the world to take on the challenge of redirecting the most powerful nation in history. This wasn't an event to promote the church. On the contrary, they invested everything, literally risking their lives in the wake of personal attacks and even terrorist attacks. We invested all that we had to wake up the American churches and people to the reality of God, the truth of the Bible, and the supreme importance of God-centered marriage and family life beyond race, nation, and religion. Declaring this message on the vast expanse of the National Mall was our goal, and nothing could change that. After a lot of back and forth negotiation, the US government granted approval for this public event, but there were now only 40 days left to prepare. Despite the happy faces you see in the photographs, this was a challenge so severe that it was handled as a matter of life and death for the nation. Now the die was cast. I felt as if I were entering a waterless desert with an oasis 40 days away. On an emotional level, that 40 days seemed as if it were more than 40 years. Wherever I went, whatever I did, whoever I was with, I could think only about the rally. I was so absorbed in it that I would confuse breakfast with dinner with breakfast, and miss lunch altogether. I think that I was not the only one. Finally, the day arrived. September 18, 1976. My husband and I arose early that morning, prayed deeply, and headed to the National Mall with a heart more serious than that of someone on the way to the gallows, not out of fear for ourselves, but because of the enormous providential significance riding on the outcome. In order to reveal the truth, father and mother risked everything. They couldn't wake up the original mind of America just by saying nice things that the Americans wanted to hear. But what does this mean for you? We are here to benefit from their lives. We are here to learn from their lives. We are here to inherit from their lives. On the surface of things, the events that Mother describes here may just appear to be more stories in the pages of history. But can we even begin to fathom the results of their sacrifices, especially in America, which influences the whole world? Can you imagine what America would be like today if those sacrifices were not offered? Can we even begin to imagine what our lives would be like today if father and mother had not gone to America? When we reflect on the incredible results of our true parents, all the way through to the recent establishment of the World Clergy Leadership Conference in 2019, which marked the 400-year anniversary of the first pilgrim footsteps that landed on Plymouth Rock in search of religious freedom, we cannot forget or deny the years of investment that our true parents offered to revive the true spirit of America. We must not forget or deny that this has been a huge benefit to us all. But in it is also a lesson. In order to wake up, we cannot deny the truth, even if our lives are at stake. The truth is most dangerous for those who seek to deny it. The awakening power of the truth is only troublesome for those who profit from sleep. For father and mother to shake America from its slumber on the hour of its bicentennial, they set out to reach hundreds of thousands of Americans on the National Mall. To do this, with so little time and in the face of constant persecution, no amount of positive reports could give you the confidence or comfort that everything would go smoothly, especially just 3 months after the drama of Yankee Stadium. But father and mother knew that no matter what, they had to have the faith that America would show up. And amazingly, it did. There, more than 300,000 people gathered by midday, peacefully, hopefully, and gratefully. It was indeed a grand and miraculous sight. The American media, the government, and certain religious hierarchies had opposed the Unification Church, but we had surmounted all the challenges. The people of America's humble neighborhoods in Richmond, Washington, D.C., Baltimore, Wilmington, Philadelphia, New York, New Haven, Boston, and beyond gathered for God and for America. They were what made the Washington Monument Rally a huge success. Did you hear Mother's words? It was them, the humble people who showed up. They that made the rally a success. Not the established churches who were attacking us, not the media which rode the wave of controversy just for profit, not the government or power elite, even though Father wanted to help them. No, it was the simple people who showed up on those buses. In this, you must understand the heart of our true mother and the deep love and respect she has, not for the prepared children who sleep, but the children who are prepared to wake up, no matter how humble they may be, no matter how humble we may be, no matter how humble you may be. It is us that have the power to move the course of history. More than anything, our true parents are searching for those who can resonate with the heart of God as one family under our Heavenly Parent. It was then as it is today. Our true mother is longing to welcome all of God's children back to the family room of true love. All of God's children back to the family room of true love, so that we may attend one another as a beautiful, blessed family under our Heavenly Parent. Imagine the world that we are creating together. It was then as it is today, and it was a remarkable thing that they accomplished. Our members had mobilized all the buses available on the East Coast, more than 1,000, and had to bite their lips as many hundreds of would-be participants were left behind at the gathering places with no more buses to transport them. It is a testimony to the American people's love of God and country that true parents triggered. We could feel it. God is alive in America.
Reverend Sun Myung Moon.
The United States of America, transcending race and nationality, is already a model of the unified world. She must realize that the abundant blessings which God has been pouring upon this land are not just for America, but are for the children of God throughout the world. Upon the foundation of world Christianity, America must exercise her responsibility as a world leader and the chosen nation of God. Now, what about America?
서는 나들의 전철을 밟지 말고
To inspire America to avoid the same mistakes. To inspire America to sacrifice herself for the sake of the world. And to inspire America to work toward this one world under God. God summoned Reverend Moon to this country to proclaim God's new revelation. And in particular, God called me to lead the young people of America, the leaders of tomorrow, back to God.